Good evening and welcome to Bedtime Stories by Julia. You're listening to calming, heartwarming stories, a place to rest, reflect, and heal. My name is Julia, and I'm here with you tonight as your gentle guide into sleep, peace, and the comfort of simple kindness. I know today might have been long. Maybe you've been running around, working hard, or carrying something heavy in your heart. So, before we begin tonight's story, let's take a few quiet moments just for you. A soft pause, a gentle breath, a space to return home to yourself. Go ahead and get comfortable. Maybe you're lying in bed or resting on the couch with a blanket around you. Close your eyes if you like. Feel your body soften into the surface beneath you. Notice the rise and fall of your breath. Now once more, breathe in calm, like soft light filling your chest. And as you exhale, release anything that feels heavy. Let your shoulders drop and your hands rest easy. You are safe. You are enough. And this time is just for you. Tonight's story is gentle. It's warm. And I hope somewhere inside it, you'll find a little light, something soft that reminds you how deeply lovable and worthy of peace you are. So stay with me. I'll read slowly. You don't need to do anything except relax and listen. And if you drift off along the way, that's beautiful. That just means the story is doing its job. Now, let's begin. Tonight, we'll meet Albert, a gentle old man who had spent a lifetime baking warm, golden pies. Not just with flour and sugar, but with love. Every crust he shaped, every apple he sliced, was a quiet way of saying, "I love you," to the woman who once filled his home with laughter. For years, his kitchen was a sanctuary of memory, where love lingered in the scent of cinnamon and the hum of an old oven. And then, just suddenly, when he thought that chapter of his life had closed for good, life whispered back in the most unexpected way. There was a small brick house with white shutters at the edge of a quiet town in California. It wasn't a big or fancy house, but it stood peacefully under the shade of tall maple trees. The paint on the windows was peeling, and the garden had more weeds than flowers. But every Sunday afternoon, something special happened. The air would fill with the rich, inviting aroma of freshly baked goods. Sometimes the deep chocolatey warmth of brownies, other times the sweet tempts of blueberry muffins, or the spiced scent of cinnamon donuts. Some weeks it was the classic comfort of apple pie. The smell floated down the street, soft and sweet, making people walking by feel warm and happy, like a forgotten memory. Neighbors often slowed their steps near the house, drawn by the cozy, comforting promise that something delicious was happening inside. That was Mr. Albert's house. Albert was 78 years old. He had lived in that house for over 50 years with his beloved wife, Margaret. Margaret was a quiet woman. She was gentle, soft-spoken, and thoughtful. She didn't enjoy crowds or noisy gatherings. Instead, she loved simple routines, warm evenings, and the soft hum of the radio. She spent most of her time caring for their home. She made the beds each morning, tended to her plants with care, and always had a warm meal ready for Albert when he returned home. She didn't have many friends, but she didn't mind. Her world was small, and that was just how she liked it. Albert, their children, and their cozy little home were all she ever needed. They raised 2 children in that house. Their son, Michael, became a successful chiropractor in a busy city in Texas. He worked hard and traveled, often for his job. He didn't have a family of his own yet, and though he loved his parents deeply, he only managed to visit twice a year, once in the summer and once during the New Year holidays. Their daughter, Susan, lived with her husband and 2 young kids in Washington, D.C. Her days were filled with caring for the children, helping with homework, and working part-time at a local post office. But every New Year, Susan and her family made sure to visit Albert. They stayed for about 2 weeks, filling the old house with laughter, chatter, and the sounds of children running through the halls. Those visits were the happiest times of the year for Albert, moments when the whole family was together. When the kitchen was full and when the silence was replaced by warmth and joy. Still, Albert and Margaret always felt proud of their children. They had grown up well, built good lives, and were kind-hearted. That was all they ever wanted. Albert and Margaret had a quiet marriage full of gentle moments. They drank tea together every evening, listened to the rain tapping on the windows, and sometimes sat side by side for hours without needing to say a word. Their love was soft but strong. When Margaret was upset, she didn't argue. She would simply go quiet. She might fold laundry or water the plants with a calm expression on her face. Albert knew those silences. He would bring her tea, sit beside her, or crack a silly joke. And just like that, she would smile again. She forgave easily, especially when she felt warmth from him. Love, to Margaret, didn't need big declarations. It lived in small gestures, gentle touches, and steady presence. Her favorite thing in the world was Albert's apple pie. Albert had learned to bake it as a young student working part-time at a bakery in a small town. The head baker was quiet and stern, but he had the best apple pie recipe in the whole village. Albert watched, learned, and practiced until he could bake it just right. When he made it for Margaret after they married, she took one bite and said, "This is the best pie I've ever had." From that day on, Albert spent every Sunday afternoon baking. Not just apple pie, but all kinds of treats he thought Margaret would have loved. Trying new recipes became a quiet joy for him, a way to keep her close and fill the house with warmth. And Margaret, wrapped in a soft blanket, would sit by the window and wait for her slice. She would take her time eating it, savoring each bite, even when she got older and her hands began to shake. Even when her energy faded, she never stopped smiling when the pie was served. "Still the best pie in the world," she would whisper, week after week. After a long and quiet battle with pneumonia, Margaret passed away peacefully in Albert's arms. Just as the morning sun slipped through the curtains, her breathing had grown softer each day, like a song slowly fading. Albert could feel the time they had left slipping through his fingers, so he didn't waste a moment. In her final days, Albert did what he had always done best. He baked, not just for comfort, but as a final gift. He poured his love into every step, peeling the apples just the way she liked, adding extra cinnamon, rolling the crust with hands that trembled more than they used to. He sat by her bedside, feeding her tiny bites of pie and whispering the stories behind each one. Memories of their youth, of rainy afternoons, of the little bakery where it all began. Each treat was more than food. It was a memory, a thank you. A way to say I love you when words no longer felt like enough. He held her hand through it all, refusing to leave her side. And as her strength faded, he gave her not just slices of pie, but the very pieces of his heart. She left this world wrapped in the love she had helped build, a quiet, unwavering love that had carried them both through a lifetime. And though Albert's arms felt emptier than ever, he knew she had felt safe, cherished, and deeply loved until her very last breath. The house grew still, but Albert kept baking the pie. Every Sunday, he turned on the oven, sliced the apples, mixed the sugar and cinnamon, and made the crust just as she liked it, golden brown and crisp. He placed a single slice on a plate, sat at their kitchen table, and ate alone. The rest of the pie stayed untouched. Some Sundays, he also baked other treats. He made oatmeal raisin cookies, banana bread, blueberry muffins, and sometimes a soft peach cobbler. The smells filled the house, but the silence stayed heavy. When neighbors asked why he kept baking, Albert would smile softly and say, "Because she loved it." Sometimes we do things not because we must, but because they help us hold on to love, because they remind us of what was beautiful, and because they help us heal. Then, one quiet Sunday afternoon, just as Albert was pulling a fresh pie from the oven, this time a warm blueberry crumble with a golden crust, he heard a soft knock at the door. Standing there was a small, shy boy, about 10 years old. His name was Lin. He lived next door with his family, who had moved in a few years ago from China. Lin was quiet, the kind of child who didn't say much in class. He liked to draw, to read, and often played alone in his backyard. His parents worked long hours, sometimes even on weekends, and Lin didn't get to see his grandparents often. Sometimes he looked a little lonely. He stood there for a moment, glancing down at his shoes, then looked up with wide eyes and said softly,
"It smells really good. I think I like apple pie."
Albert's heart warmed. He smiled and opened the door wider.
Don't just stand there. Come in, young man. I've got a fresh one right here.
He cut a generous slice of pie and placed it on a small blue plate. Lin sat at the table across from him, his little hands carefully holding the warm dessert. At first they didn't say much, just the sound of forks and the occasional hum of approval. But soon, Lin began asking quiet questions.
"Grandpa, how do you make it smell like that? Is the crust hard to do? And what's that brown stuff on top?"
Albert chuckled. He showed Lin the cinnamon, the nutmeg, the worn rolling pin he'd had since his bakery days. He told him stories about the tiny bakery where he used to work, about his wife Margaret's love for pie, and the little tricks that made the crust extra flaky. Lin listened closely, eyes wide, soaking in every word like it was something special. From that day forward, Lin came over every Sunday. Some weeks, it was apple pie. Other times, it was banana bread, or chocolate brownies, or sweet cinnamon rolls. And once, a peach tart with cream that made Lin smile so big, Albert laughed out loud. Sometimes, Lin brought food from his own home. His mother would pack spring rolls, dumplings, or sticky rice cakes. She always smiled when she handed him the container and said,
"Take these to Mr. Albert. He is kind to you."
She once told Albert.
Lin misses having grandparents around. I think being with you helps him feel a little less alone.
Albert nodded, his eyes soft. He understood that kind of loneliness all too well. And so, week by week, something beautiful grew between them. A quiet connection, no loud laughter or big moments, just two souls sharing food, stories, and comfort, one Sunday at a time. In a way, they filled a space in each other's hearts that had been quietly empty for a long time. Albert had lost a kind of love that Lin had not experienced yet. But together, over warm pie and gentle conversation, they both found something new, something healing. They began baking together every Sunday. At first, Lynn was quiet, watching carefully as Albert moved around the kitchen. But over time, his hands became steady, his smile more open. Albert showed him how to peel apples in one long ribbon without breaking it, how to fold dough gently like it held a secret, and how to sprinkle sugar, not too little, not too much, just right. They didn't stop at apple pie. They made pumpkin pies in the fall, blueberry muffins in the summer, lemon tarts when spring came, and sweet almond cookies during the winter holidays. Soon, the kitchen that once echoed with silence became filled with life again. There was the soft hum of the oven, the clinking of spoons and bowls, the rustle of recipe books. But more than anything, there was laughter, light, warm, and real. Lynn began to open up. He asked questions about baking, about Albert's past, about Margaret. He told Albert about school, his drawings, his dreams. One quiet afternoon, while waiting for a tray of cookies to bake, Lynn looked up and asked softly,
"Do you think Margaret would like me?"
Albert paused, his eyes kind. He reached out and gently ruffled the boy's hair.
She would love you so much.
And he meant every word. Lynn never got to know the love of grandparents closely. But through Albert, he learned what it felt like to be cared for with patience, with gentleness, with steady love. He learned to say thank you without being reminded. He started bringing 2 forks instead of 1. He offered to help his parents more, and even began packing small treats to share with a classmate who often sat alone. Being near Albert didn't just teach him how to bake. It taught him how to care, how to notice, how to share, and how to love. Albert still missed Margaret. He always would. Love like that doesn't just disappear. But now, the emptiness in the house felt a little smaller, a little softer. He realized that healing doesn't always come all at once. Sometimes it arrives quietly in the sound of a child's laughter, the smell of cinnamon in the air, the joy of showing someone how to crack an egg without breaking the yolk. Every Sunday, Albert still baked. Not just to remember his love for Margaret, but to share that love with someone who needed it too. So, if you ever feel lonely, truly lonely, remember this: healing starts with the smallest things. A warm slice of pie, a chair pulled out just for you, a hand reaching across the table. Don't be afraid to reach out, even if your voice shakes, even if your heart feels tired, because love is still here. Sometimes it looks like a grandpa and a boy in a kitchen full of flour and laughter, and love, like pie, is always better when shared.